If you own a small business and you might be looking to sell, you could run into some major issues. Forbes estimates that 9 out of 10 businesses listed never actually sell. Why? Because there's only one way to sell. You need to do these 4 steps first. So if you want to be a part of the 10% of businesses that sell for profits, we've created a free checklist for you so you can sell without those hurdles that normally hold you back. Download the free checklist by visiting www.abundantculture.co/checklist.
Welcome back to the Abundant Culture Podcast, where business owners like you come to learn how to grow the valuation of their companies so they can sell in the future. On this show, you'll learn how to sell for top dollar and invest in profitable businesses around the country. Now, here are your hosts, Jazz and Joe.
Hey, it's Joe here. Welcome back to the Abundant Culture Podcast. We're so glad to have you back again this week. Now, I know as a small business owner, everyone has thought that if we just had the money, we could grow, or we could do this, or we could do that. And money seems to be a huge barrier to entry for a lot of business owners, or a barrier to growth. But today we're interviewing somebody who can alleviate that barrier for you. One of the secrets to the wealthy is that they have access to investment funds. So today we're going to be talking about what an investment fund is, how can you leverage one in order to grow your own business, how to start one, and so much more. So get ready to listen to and learn from our good friend, Bridger Pennington.
Hi, Bridger, and thank you again for coming on to the Abundant Culture Podcast. We are super excited to have you today because Joe and I consumed so much of your content that we absolutely love. So we know that we had to share that same content with our audience. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, we have to ask you, what is your backstory? How'd you get into the fund space?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. I know it's funny. We were just talking that you guys are, in our course, and for you guys, I guess virtually, you guys have met each other long ago, I guess, but it's fun to meet each other in person more now on Zoom. But yeah, I got started in this space. Just a little bit of background for people. I run a fund right now. I've run a fund for about 4 years. My dad and family and brother, they all are in the fund space and do pretty well. And so I'll talk about that in a minute. But I was like a lot of people starting out. I got to college. I had this ambition. I grew up in a middle class type of family. I had a lot of ambition to be successful, to make a lot of money as quickly as possible. So I got into school. I started 6 businesses my first 2 years of college, and I was after it. I mean, and these were not business like ideas. These were business attempts, up and running employees. I really went after it. We had a wholesaling business, Chinese tutoring business. I did cryptocurrency. I built websites for people. I mean, any type of money-making thing online, I tried it. And finally, I did okay. I made a little bit of money, nothing crazy. And finally, my dad sat me down and said, Bridger, you're kind of like a chicken with your head cut off. I want you to go meet with one of my business partners. And so I said, okay, we set up this meeting. I drive up to this guy's house and I pull up to this beautiful area and home. And I think you guys have probably heard this story before, but I pulled up to this incredible house, beautiful white house, porch, everything. I park my car, I get out, I walk up to his door, and I'm a little, who's my dad's business partner? I mean, my dad, he drives a crappy car. This guy's pretty legit. Knock on the door, he answers it. Bridger, come on in. We sit down, we start to chat, and we start talking about life and all of business and everything. I finally ask him, how did you get all of this? And I kind of pointed at everything, right? Like this. Yeah. And he kind of laughs and he goes, Bridger, it's actually funny. Not very many people ask me that question. And I go, oh, really? That was the first question I had, when I walked in. And he's like, and I'm like, sorry. And he goes, no, you're fine. You can ask me that question. And he goes, when I was in my 20s, I was a lot like you. I had started a number of businesses. I did okay. But then I figured out the secrets of the wealthy, of the ultra rich. And I was intrigued. I kind of leaned in. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, this is what the ultra wealthy families of the world do. This is the Rockefellers. This is the Vanderbilts. This is the Trump family, the round even politics, right? These families, they get their kids and they make sure they go to really good schools. And they'll sometimes cheat to even get them in those schools, which we've seen in the past, right? Yeah. They get them in those schools and then they have them try to work up and go to investment banking, consulting. They try to have them work in hedge funds, private equity, or come back home and run the family office is what it's called. They all work in what they call the the fund space. And I was intrigued. He goes, and he said, this is what I figured out. I figured this out about 15 years ago. And I went out and me and your dad and a few other people started a fund and we started a real estate. And for people that don't know what a fund is, I'm guessing we'll talk about this more on the episode, but in the most basic terms, this is hedge funds, private equity funds, real estate funds. They all are pretty much the same. Essentially, a fund is just a pool of money. Investors put money into that pool, and then we as fund managers can draw from that pool and go buy real estate, or we could go buy businesses, or we can go trade cryptocurrency. We can pretty much do whatever we want with that pool. And whenever we make money with that pool, it flows back and you just take a split between yourself and your investor. So that's the most basic terms of what a fund is. And so he said at the time they were managing $8 billion of multifamily real estate, billion with a B. And people that know Grant Cardone, right? Cardone Capital, they manage $1.1 billion right now, currently. At the time, this is 6 years ago, they were managing $8 billion. Now today, they're over $20 billion they manage. It's 20 times bigger than Grant Cardone, right? They manage multifamily real estate. It was crazy. And I was very intrigued. I was excited. I said, hey, and I've always heard you got to find mentors, right? You got to learn from people. So I said, hey, can you be my mentor? Can you teach me about this? And he goes, Bridger, go talk to your dad. Your dad knows way more about this than I do. And I said, no, my dad, he drives a crappy car. I want you to teach me because you're rich. And he goes, Bridger, me and your dad make about the same amount of money. And my chin about dropped to the floor. I was like, what? Come again? He goes, yeah, we're pretty much equal business partners. And I left his house. I drove straight to my dad's house and I was like, Dad, what the heck? What's going on? Why aren't we buying fancy things and going on to Hawaii on vacation? Why haven't I been able to order a soda at Chipotle for the past 5 years? Because it's too expensive. And you have this big fun. Anyways, he laughs and he says, we're doing okay. And I like to save and invest my money and my partner likes to spend his money. But yeah, we do this fun thing. And long story short, so I'm going a little bit long. You guys can interrupt me if you'd like.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But my dad sat me down and started to teach me about funds. And every Sunday night we'd sit down, he'd pull out the whiteboard and start to teach me about the inner workings of the SEC, how to file your Form D and how to regulation, how to raise money for investors, all this kind of stuff. And I had a dream and a goal to start my own fund. And so a few months later, I had a great idea. I thought that at this company I was working at, that I could start a fund that would lend money to some of their clients. And I thought it was a great idea. I took the idea to my dad. He was a great mentor, helped me think through the idea. And I finally got it all set up. I was ready to go. I was ready to launch my fund. I was like, hey, here we are. I'm going to launch this fund. I overlooked the one main thing you need for a fund is investors, right? You need money. And you guys are smiling. You guys have heard the story before probably, but I said, well, I'm going to go ask my dad. My dad loves me. He's helped me on this. He likes the idea. He apparently has all this money that he likes to save and invest. He would love to invest in my fund. So I remember it was a late Sunday night. I went to my dad's office. I sat down with him and in my best pitch voice possible, I said, Dad, how would you like to be our first investor into our fund? And he kind of laughed and he said, Bridger, if I invest in your fund, I would ruin the experience of you raising money on your own. He said, it'll be a crutch that you'll never be able to recover from. And your first investor is your hardest investor. And I'm not going to take away that experience from you. And he said, you need to go out and find your own investors. And it was a big tough love moment between me and my dad. And he kicked me out. And I took him up on the challenge. I hit the streets. And over the next few weeks, I raised a whopping $49,000 from it was 6 or 7 different investors. Teeny fund. If you know anything about funds, that's teeny, micro, small fund. But for what I was doing is enough to get started. We were doing ththese small little loans. It was enough to get started. And I launched my first fund. That first group of investors, we got them a 64% return. And we did, still small numbers, but a good return. They were really impressed. And then since then, we've launched our second fund. We're launching a third fund right now. We've grown and done millions of dollars since then and done really well. But that's kind of how I got in this game. And to this day, my dad has never invested in any deal, any project, any fund, anything I've presented to him. He's never invested to date. And I still actually pitch him all the time. Maybe I'll get him eventually. But anyways, that's kind of how we got into it. So since then, So my dad runs this big fund. My brother's a securities attorney. We've had a lot of people ask us about how to start up funds and how to work in funds. And none of us went to Harvard. None of us are Ivy League. My dad grew up in ghetto North Las Vegas, got B's and C's in college. I mean, we all kind of did this, unconventionally. So we finally started, online content and shows. We have a podcast and a group and a mastermind program that we help other people do the same thing and launch their scale their funds, just because no one else talks about this. No one else talks about funds. I don't know why, but online there's this gap of knowledge on how to actually start and scale a fund. So that's what we do.
Yeah. And to that point, I think it's so interesting that you guys do this, because you would think that, funds probably account for like trillions of dollars in just the United States, not even counting around the world. And when I first saw your ad, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then in my mind, I asked the same question. I'm like, wait a minute, is Bridger the only person that does this? And from what I saw, there wasn't a lot of people who taught people how to put together a fund, how to raise money legally, and how to deploy it into different types of deals. So I definitely appreciate that you guys put all of this content together so that regular people can actually go out and start a fund and actually scale it. Because honestly, I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but we actually just finished the paperwork for our fund. We're still working on fund administration and a couple other things, but we finished the paperwork for it. And I don't think I would have.
That's huge. Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had the audacity or the tenacity to do that if it weren't for me getting comfortable with it through your content, through your podcast and your Facebook group that you have. So it's
your course.
Yeah. And your course that we bought.
Well, I would say too, and I understand the uniqueness of my position, right? I understand it's very unique to have a dad like I have and a brother who's a security attorney. It is unique. And most people don't have that. And most people don't even have the vision. They can't even think through it of that's possible. That's actually in my scope of something I could do. And for me, it was because I had family members doing it. But if I didn't have that, I would be the same boat. So that's a little bit why we did this, is just to almost share, like if you heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? The book, It's almost like, hey, I have a rich dad. I want to share the knowledge with other people and share what's going on. And the same thing's happened to me. So I'm congrats to you guys too. Kudos on your fund. You guys buying and selling businesses, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so that's our goal, is to basically buy and sell businesses, usually between the revenue ranges of $500,000 per year to 5 million. And pretty much because traditional private equity firms don't usually focus on deals that small, even though that's probably like a decent size for us where we are. They're not usually focusing on those. So a lot of those deals, they end up either passing down to their kids reluctantly or just having to close their doors when they retire. So we want to continue buying businesses like we have been in the past, but scaling it through a fund.
I love that. I think the other mentality too for a lot of people is you have to be buying businesses that are, have an EBITDA of $300 million and you're going to IPO. Like there's plenty of niche funds that are working in the 500 grand space or the $2 million space, or these small gaps in the market that people like us entrepreneurs can fill and actually do really well. Kudos to you guys. Congrats, man. It's awesome.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you say that, because I see that all the time in different Facebook groups that I'm in. Like, they're trying, and not to say that, if you can buy a $20 million company that you shouldn't. I mean, if you can, and if you like the company, I believe you should. But I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who are haven't even done their first deal yet a lot of times, and they're trying to compete with other private equity firms and do all of these super complicated things. And I think there is something to be said about gaining momentum wherever you can gain momentum. Because getting that first deal out the way, it's the hardest one. We got ours out the way. It was one of the most stressful times in my life, period. But now that it's out the way, I learned so much from that experience. And it's allowed me to have the confidence to move into a fund and invest other people's money. So one of the things I did want to touch on is the idea that your friend's dad mentioned that not a lot of people ask them, how did he get all of this? Like, that's something, even though it might be a small thing, it really stood out to me, because I think I would ask the same question, like, how'd you get all of this? Because, I come from, Gary, Indiana, feel free to look up pictures. Don't look up pictures on the government website, because they have like fake photos. I don't even know what that is, but like real pictures of Gary, Indiana is not the best place to grow up. I didn't have anybody's house to go to who lived like that to ask the question, how'd you get all of this? Why do you think that you were one of the first people to really ask him that question?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I think a lot of people think it's this barrier because it's people don't like to talk about money a lot. It's almost one of these taboo topics, which I hate. I literally at dinner every night of the week, we talk money I talk money all day at dinner with family, friends. Like we always are talking money I think it's just fun.
Yeah.
I guess that's unique. I've met other people that they don't do that. No one talks money. No one talks finances. No one talks stock prices. And so I think that was the first thing of people. It's a little bit taboo. And secondly, I think I don't know why actually other people have it. For me, it was, I have ambition and I'm going to find other people who are ahead of me on the path. And I'm going to ask them and try to just figure out what I can do to get to their spot.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's pretty obvious and that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. That seems just like I don't know. If you want to be successful, just copy what successful people do. That's what Tony Robbins will always tell you.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I have a lot of friends, really great friends that haven't really thought of that before. Haven't thought of I have a friend that wants to be a dentist, right? Have you gone and shadowed dentists yet? Oh no, I haven't. Why haven't you gone and talked to people that are already dentists and see how they like it, what they would have done differently? And so I think there's a lot of value in asking questions and learning just from people that are ahead of you in any aspect of life. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of value in asking questions. One question can literally be life-changing if you find the answer to it. And I've had so many of those moments. And I don't know where my life would be without those moments. But since our podcast is tailored towards small business owners and helping small business owners grow either through acquisition or one day selling their company, just helping them grow the value of their business. In your opinion, how can starting a fund like you have really help a small business owner grow? Could you kind of tell our audience about, in your opinion, what is it behind a fund, or what's the strategy behind a fund that can help them get to the next level?
If you don't diversify your investment portfolio, you could end up losing it all. But most business owners don't know how to diversify to mitigate those risks. That's why we created this resource for you. This passive investing guide is a must-have if you're planning to invest in businesses. Don't hesitate. If you have more than 25 grand liquid, then you can't afford not to take advantage of this resource. Download the 4 reasons why in 2021 you need small businesses in your portfolio now by going to www.abundantculture.co/guide.
It's a great question. So there's a few ways to go about it. And I'll give you a few examples. The cool thing about funds is you can pretty much use them for whatever you want. If the only thing stopping you from growth is money, a fund might be or probably is the best option for you. So I have a lot of friends that flip houses, right?
Yeah.
They flip 2 to 3 houses. One guy in our group, he just started a fund that they're going to flip 84 houses this year in 2021, right?
Nice.
Another group, they actually, you might know them in the mastermind group. They do Amazon business. Okay. And they ran like 1 or 2 Amazon businesses. They started a fund. They went and purchased, I think 7 or 8 of their competitors and put them all under one roof, and now have scaled. They've like 10x their business over the last 12 months. It's been incredible to see their growth through a fund. So a fund really is just a catalyst for growth. If you can bolt a fund on to a successful business, it just helps you grow like crazy. So for small business owners, a few examples of things you can do. Number one is acquire. You can have a fund yourself to acquire other businesses. You could have a fund to scale your current operation. So if you have 1 location, you want to go to 50 locations, you set up a fund. It's a pool of money. You can go set up all those other locations, and you're not giving up equity in your business. The traditional thinking is like the Shark Tank route. Okay, I'll give up 20% of my business for $500,000, right? And that's a very shark way to go about it. They're going to be now 20% owners in your business. Like, holy crap, that sucks. Yeah. With a fund, you maintain 100% equity. You raise a fund, those partners, and maybe I'll go a little more detail with the Amazon guys. This is what they did. They actually raised a fund. And I think we'll use round numbers. I think it was around $500,000. They went and purchased 10 Amazon businesses for about 50 grand a piece. And those Amazon businesses, they scaled up and they were cash flowing around 750 grand a year. So what they did, because they're really good at scaling Amazon businesses, I guess, they just took that cash flow, paid off all their investors, and now they run an Amazon businesses that are cash flowing 750 grand a year and can sell them. They maintain 100% ownership. Investors were paid off with a 15% return. They're really happy. That was a great investment, and they maintain 100% ownership. So that's a one type of example. Another example, kind of a different realm. I have a friend, his entire fund goes and buys and sells funeral homes. So they go around, he found that he can buy mom and pop funeral homes and sell them to a bigger firm for about double. So every year he has about $7-8 million, and he goes and buys maybe 5 or 6 mom and pop funeral homes, and he can sell them. So let's call it 8 million he spends to buy them. He can sell that for about $16-17 million. He makes $8 million every year just doing that. Now he's got to pay his investors back and stuff, and he probably takes home about maybe $1.5-2 million a year every year. That's what he does. So there's a lot of facets you can use funds for. Just get the wheels spinning a little bit. It's pretty incredible. And again, it's just a catalyst for growth. So if you're a good stock trader, okay, you trade 100 grand. What if you traded 10 million, right? If you flip houses, you get 100 grand versus 10, right? And it's versus 10 million. It's a catalyst for growth where you're not giving up equity in your business.
Absolutely.
Those are like amazing examples. So I have to ask you, what is the most unique fund that you've ever heard of?
Oh man, there's some awesome ones. I was actually on a call with 2 guys. I think I'll share 2 with you this last week. One of the funds I heard of, these guys, well, I probably shouldn't tell you all their stuff because they probably don't want me to share, but they're doing stuff on the moon. So they started a fund to finance companies that are going to be doing projects on the moon in the future. Little far-fetched. I was like, wow, that's pretty unique.
Yeah, that's the blue ocean for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Another group, they go and buy and sell almond farms. They go out, they found almond farms, get, I guess, good ROIs, whatever it is. And they buy and sell almond farms. Another group, they buy scripts in Hollywood. So they'll go find broke writers that, have these scripts for a TV series. They will buy the script for, let's call it 25 grand or 50 grand. They turn around and they will sell it to HBO or Prime or Apple, because everyone has their streaming service now. Yeah. And they'll sell them for 200, 300, 400 grand, these scripts. That's their entire fund. That's what they do. So those are some unique funds. There's a lot of niches. Now you have the traditional funds that are just buying and selling businesses or trading crypto, or I guess crypto is not that unique, but they're not that traditional hedge funds. But there's some cool niches out there of what people are doing. Yeah. The best part is, the other part I'll say too, is there is so much money. That's the thing, is right now we have this incredible amount of money in the world. There is so much. Even before 2020, there was, I can't remember the number. It was I think it was over $300 billion in dry powder that was not uncalled capital at private equity firms, right? Just waiting to get deployed into markets. And then in 2020, they've printed, I've heard reports anywhere from 20% to about 35% of all US dollars were printed in the last 12 months.
Jeez.
Which is wild. That is 20% of a currency printed in 1 year. That just doesn't make sense, right? And I could talk about it for an hour, and then we got Jeremy Powell that tells us that inflation's only at 2%, which I think is a bogus. That's what's happening there. Everybody has money. The problem is not money right now. The problem is, where can you find yield? And I know for some people that sounds, for me too, it's hard to raise money. You're out there and you're like, no, I can't find money. You got to always remember, there is so much money in this world. There is right now about $17 trillion, trillion with a T, $1 trillion trading at 0 or negative interest rates in Europe. People are buying bonds or any type of security at 0 or negative rates, meaning they're guaranteeing a loss. They have looked around and said, I would rather guarantee a loss than invest in something else, right? There's a lot of demand for yield. People are looking for returns. So if you can provide a decent return for investors, money will find you.
That is crazy.
That is.
So I know that there's somebody listening to this and their head just exploded because they didn't realize that there was all this money out there. I think the natural next question for most people, and it was the natural question for me at one point in time, was, okay, if there's all this money out there, what are the steps that I need to take in order to find the people who have it and pitch them, or attract those people to me? Is one of the questions that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually asked my dad this question when I was first trying to raise money. And I was 22 years old when I started my first fund. No experience, didn't have a college degree. I mean, nothing, right? I said, Dad, how am I going to raise money? Like, how am I going to do this? And he gave me this example and it changed my life. And I want to give you guys the same example. He said, Bridger, imagine we just found a Lamborghini Aventador in Billings, Montana, and we can buy it this weekend for $50,000. There's a lady out there and she, for whatever reason, is going into bankruptcy or whatever. She needs to sell this car. We've had a mechanic look at it. It's legit. This is not a fake Lamborghini. It's legit. $50,000 on Saturday morning, we can buy it. We have a verified buyer in California that will buy the car for $200,000 Monday morning. 100%. They've already signed the purchase order. And he goes, just go with me. This is an example, right? It's all checked out. It's all guaranteed. And he said, Bridger, the only thing is you can't use any of your own money. You have to raise money from other people. If you raise 50 grand by Saturday, you'll make 150 grand by Monday morning. Could you raise $50,000 by Saturday morning? And he asked me this question and I thought about it. And I was like, well, maybe a former boss or like a college professor or a family friend or a long lost uncle or whatever. And I started to think through, I was kind of skeptical, but I thought, you know what, 150 grand, and it's guaranteed. I was like, you know what, I think I could do, I could raise 50 grand. I'll stay up late. I'll wake up early. I'll fly around. I'll do whatever. You know what? I'm like, I'm in, I could do this. Right. And he goes, what about $100,000? Do you think you could raise $100,000 by Saturday? And I said, you know what? I was like, yeah, I think I could talk to enough people. I really, I was like, you know what, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to make 100 grand this weekend. Dang straight. I'm going to find 100 grand by Saturday morning. And my dad asked me why. And I said, well, the deal is it's foolproof. You said it's guaranteed. He goes, aha, there it is. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, 3 minutes ago, you were telling me that you're too young, you're inexperienced, you don't have a track record, you don't have all this going for you. However, you just told me you could raise $100,000 by Saturday morning because the deal was guaranteed. And he goes, that's the biggest problem that most people face when they're trying to raise money. They don't believe in their deal like you believed in the Lamborghini, transaction I just explained. And he said, step one for any fund or anything you're doing is find an incredible deal, a deal or a business or whatever you're doing that is so lucrative that you've poked every hole in and found that this thing is watertight. This thing is, yes, there's a little bit of risk, but I'm 100% in it. And he goes, you'll be surprised what happens, what you can do when you're that confident in a deal. Most of the time, people are not confident enough to go out and do that. And so that one little story, that changed my life. I started to make sure before I talked to any investor that my deal was 100% soundproof water. I was 100% in on it and committed, and money loves confidence. Old sales quote, right? Money loves confidence. And I think that was the first thing. Now, secondly, to your question is, where do I find these investors, right? I got a great deal, or I got something that's waterproof. Where do I go to find these people? And one of two things. Number one is you can do it yourself, right? You can go out and leverage your network and talk to everybody. Okay. You talk to anybody you know, and you'd be surprised how far word of mouth actually just travels. I got this friend, Bridger, of a friend he's investing into real estate. You should go talk to him. And it's very interesting when you put your antennas out, what happens. Number two, though, is partnering with somebody who already has the connections. There are people out there. I actually met a guy about 3 months ago. He calls me up. He's like, Bridger, I like networking. I'm an extrovert. I have 2 guys that are billionaires that love me to death. They want to invest in my deals. They're great friends of mine. I just don't have any deal. I got nothing to offer them, but I've got this great network. Can I work with you? And I was like, dang straight, you can come work with me. Let's do this, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'll take their money. But he's like, I got to be part of the deal. And I said, great, we'll cut you in. We'll cut you a slice where it's your, it's part of your deal. And
Absolutely.
there are people out there who have spent the last decade of their life creating a Rolodex of people that are very high net worth, but they have no clue what to invest in. They don't know what to do with it. And so the second option is find an incredible money raising partner. And there's actually more of these people than you think. There's a lot of people out there that I've met that are like this and have great network, but just don't know where to deploy their capital. So those are the two things I would say. Is that kind of making sense?
Absolutely.
Yes, great answers.
Yeah, I believe that's such a great answer, because I think a lot of times, like as an entrepreneur, you think that, everything is on you. And I think in the very, very beginning, it kind of is. But I think what you just said about also, if, not only leverage your network, but go out and find somebody else to leverage their network, I believe that's so powerful. And it's something that we've used in our business. And it really helps to expand on your core competencies. And I think it creates this synergy where, 1 + 1 doesn't only equal 2, it equals 3, because you're working with the right type of person. And I think that is what you're talking about. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, obviously when you have the time, sharpen whatever skill you need. But in the meantime, while you're doing that, find somebody else who already has that skill and try to bring them into your business and just really leverage their expertise as you become better at it. And I think just by hanging around certain people who are good at something, you might not get as good as they are, but you'll start to just improve just by the very fact that you're around them so much. So I think that is an excellent piece of information.
Mm-hmm. So for the person that's thinking like, well, I love this idea, I want to get started, but I don't even know where to begin. What is like that first step in starting a fund?
Yeah, there's two spots. If you're like ready to start a fund, like you feel like you have the knowledge and the intent, start with that deal. That's what I always tell people. Start with step number 1, find that incredible deal. Or again, find a partner with incredible deals, right? There's people that, it's funny, actually, my dad's funds, I make fun of them all the time. My dad does not know really the first thing about real estate. And they manage over $20 billion of real estate. And I always ask him, what do you think of this deal? He's like, I don't know. He goes, but I have incredible partners that know they can walk past a building and tell you what the cap rate is and tell you exactly what it's worth and what they'd offer. And it's actually pretty funny of the partners they've built, but that's no one does this alone. The second thing I would say though, that I think is more crucial, if people are just interested in this, maybe the first time you're kind of hearing about this and want to get in the game, is start to educate yourself on funds. It is one of the most lucrative vehicles on the planet. I've talked to hundreds of people about funds. Every time I bring up the word fund or private equity or hedge funds, people's ears pop up. They want to learn more, right? They want to for whatever reason, it's just like a buzzword. Yeah. If you can just talk the talk of funds, it is actually very lucrative for your career. I'll give you an example. I had just started my first fund. I was doing well, and I got invited by 3 gentlemen to come to a meeting. And they were going to set up a new fund. These guys wanted to, and these were legit entrepreneurs. These guys were all in their 40s and 50s, had been very successful. One guy had run a massive company, $25 million, a year business. Another guy had flipped 500 homes in like the last 2 years. These guys were very successful in their trade. We got in a room. They wanted to set up it was an opportunity zone fund. We sat down, and the one gentleman invited me that liked me. The other 3 guys did not like me. They didn't want me there. They were like, who's this kid? Why'd you invite him? He's not, like, we don't want him. It was kind of one of those first meetings where we're kind of meeting together. So I'm sitting in the room. They're obviously kind of butted me out of the conversation. I'm trying to get in, but like, they obviously don't like what I'm, so I'm just sitting there, I'm waiting. And I finally raise my hand and I say, hold on real quick. What are you guys going to do for your carried interest and your management fees? And you're going to run an American waterfall or European waterfall. And they all kind of like, huh? What are you talking about? And they said, come describe what you mean. And I went on the whiteboard and I spent the next 7 minutes walking them through terms inside of a fund. I walked them through what a pref is and what a catch up and what a waterfall and a high water mark and stuff that we teach in our you guys probably all know these things, but stuff we teach in our program and other stuff. And after about 7 minutes, they realized that I knew stuff about funds that they didn't know. And at the end of that meeting, they wanted me to be an equal partner with them in the fund. My clout in that room went from 0 to like equal partner in 7 minutes because I had done the prep work beforehand to understand how funds work, how they function. I got to that meeting and I knew what I was talking about. And it got me, it got me a seat at the table. So I would tell people first off, and that helps you in, even if you're a 9 to 5, employee, if you can talk this game, which pretty much every successful entrepreneur wants to get in this game in some way, shape, or form, you can talk through it very well. It's going to benefit your career in every way, shape, or form. And people are going to recognize that you're the guy that understands funds and how they work. And you're just going to get invited to more and more deals, more and more pitch rooms, more and more meetings. And eventually one of those are going to work out. Eventually one of those partners is going to land. And you're going to start something and be pretty successful with it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree, because I think there's a certain power that comes with knowing a vocabulary that most people don't know. And it can get you into so many doors and create like a status that you might not even know that you have, but other people think that you have it because of the way that you speak. It's so powerful. I have like similar stories for myself. And honestly, when I took your course, even though I knew a little bit of some of the concepts, a lot of it was still really new to me, especially the vocabulary. I heard almost none of those words. I didn't know what carried interest was, a waterfall, a catch up, a pref. I didn't know what those things were. But then as I started to learn those things, it started to become like a second language to me. So when I speak like that on the phone with somebody who is an investment banker or in venture capital or something like that, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you do know what you're talking about. And I think it's something that's so powerful, especially for young people, because if you're young, they're probably already kind of discounting you because of your youth. But if you can use certain language that they know that not the average person knows, it'll increase your status. And I think in Oren Klaff's book, Flip the Script, he actually talks about that status alignment. And basically in that moment, you were able to take your status from almost nothing to being equal, possibly even greater than everybody else is in the room. So I think that's a very, very powerful piece of information. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I wanted to really ask you is, we want to start wrapping up to really respect your time. What is the number one takeaway that you want any business owner to get from this podcast episode?
I think the biggest thing, and this is more general, something that's just helped me and something that mentors have taught me and helped me. For people that are listening and haven't started a business yet and haven't gotten in the game and haven't quite yet swung the bat, it's something my dad taught me and I think created an entrepreneur inside of me. Every time we would go out to dinner or go out somewhere and we'd go to a restaurant ran by an immigrant, my dad would always point them out. And he'd go, Bridger, look at that guy right there. His family probably moved here from Korea or whatever we're at, South Mongolia or wherever they're from. Yeah. They moved here 5 years ago. And within 5 years, the dude can't even speak English. He's got 2 restaurants and he's got a laundromat and another business set up.
Yeah.
How did he do that in 5 years? And he doesn't even speak English. And he said, it's because they realized, that family, whatever group he point out, they realized the opportunity they have when they moved to America and they moved to a land of opportunity. And he said, if they were able to do it, you have no excuse. You grew up, you went to school here, you speak English as your first language. You have no reason, no excuse not to be successful. And I think of kind of a baseball analogy of getting up to the plate and swinging the bat. Most people in their life, they sit on the sidelines, they make jokes on Twitter and they put people down and they're the peanut gallery, right? They're throwing popcorn. Yeah. Very few people actually get up to the plate and swing the bat.
For sure.
And for me, I started at a young age of swinging the bat. Right? I said 6 businesses my first 2 years of college. And my mentality was, if I swing the bat enough times, eventually I'm going to hit a base hit and maybe I'll get a double and maybe I'll hit a home run. But millionaires are made off of singles and doubles, right? You don't even have to hit a home run. And I'm going to strike out a few times, but at least I'm at the plate swinging the bat. And I've always made that decision to be in the game and to not be a critic, I've actually tried to make a goal over the last 2 years to not put out a negative comment on Instagram or Twitter. Sometimes it's very hard. It's very easy to make fun of. And I've just tried to make it like, hey, I'm not going to put out negative comments. I'm not going to make fun. I'm going to be in the game. I'm going to focus on me and I'm going to keep swinging the bat. And what's funny is if you swing the bat enough times, you're going to hit something. right?
For sure.
And if you can keep your expenses low, if you can stay low leverage, don't buy the nice car and the fancy house, just stay really low leverage. Me and my wife, I think to survive right now, we have to spend about $900 a month to survive. That's gas, food, rent, mortgage, like everything, car, that's all, it's $900 a month. If we have $900 a month, we survive. And what that allows me to do is go and swing for the fences. I can swing as much as I want. We have this new fund coming out and I'm swinging for the fence on this one. And if we fail, okay, if I hit rock bottom zero, if I just get a McDonald's job and I make $900 a month, we're still going to live in our same house and we're going to still drive the same cars and we're still going to pretty much live the same life. I think that's something my dad taught me. He said, if you can stay low leverage, you can, when opportunities come by, you can take advantage of them, and you have no excuse not to be successful. So back to your question, for something I want to leave with people, that's it, is get in the game, start swinging the bat, and start playing bigger. So
absolutely.
I freaking love that, because Joe and I, we were just talking about that same exact concept the other day. Like, we were looking around like the south side of Chicago, like, why aren't people, striving for more? And Joe was saying it's like they just don't keep trying. They stop because something doesn't go right and they don't keep going. So I love that keep swinging the bat analogy. That is perfect.
For sure.
So you're on the Abundant Culture podcast, and we feel the need to ask every single guest this question. And the question is, how do you spread abundance, whether it be in your personal, business, spiritual life, just in general?
Yeah, it's a great question. I like that. I'm a pretty spiritual person. I'm very active member of my church. I'm all in on gospel things and trying to be just trying to become a better person. I try to give quite a bit to churches and charities. For me though, writing a check to like a church, it's okay. You write them a check. It's like, yeah, it feels okay. Me and my wife have discovered it is way more fun to do it like individually. So we actually, like, every year we'll set a budget of how much money we're going to give away in $20 bills. And so every time we go to the grocery store, we walk in with like $40. And we try to spot out a family or spot out somebody that we can just like, hey, like, we're paying your groceries today. And that is the funnest thing. It is the funnest way to spend money. It's great. And so, or we'll just leave it on the cash. It's like really fun. So we try to do a lot with that and just spread goodness. Outside of monetary stuff though, and I'm not perfect at this at all. There's people that are way better, like 100 times better. We're just trying our little part, to do good out there. But I think with COVID, so many people are lonely. And I think loneliness is one of the biggest pandemics in the world, is loneliness. Even before COVID, people are increasingly lonely, which is so sad. We have such a connected world, yet everyone's alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I try to make a conscious effort to call my grandparents, try to call them once or twice a month, 3 times a month if I can. On Sundays, I'll try to call them, or call friends, or because FaceTime is the best. You can just FaceTime somebody, talk to them for 4 minutes, and then, hit them up next week. Right. And I think mental health is a huge crisis in America. And I think really it comes down to, if you just have friends and talk to people, most people, you can kind of get through most stuff if you have other people around you.
Yeah.
And just most people don't really have a circle. And so I really try, me and my wife, we try to consciously reach out and just talk to people and send them a text that we love them and we appreciate them, and just friends and family, people that we, feel like might be a little bit lonely. So that's like our small part. We're pretty bad at it. We got to get better. But I think it's a great question. I gotta do a lot better though. So we're trying to do better, but that's kind of stuff we've been doing.
Yeah. You're
trying. So that's like the first step.
Yeah. You're probably a lot better than I am still.
Right.
So I got to get better too.
Yeah.
And one thing I just love about you guys is that you are so genuine. To have the level of success that you have is probably not a big deal for you, but on the outside looking in, if I were to ask myself, would I be able to actually reach you? I would have suspected that I probably could not, but I actually was able to. And I think it says so much about you guys' humility and your willingness to have connections and conversations with people that may or may not actually, benefit you at all. So I think that's great. Keep it up. You're definitely very, very inspiring. So if somebody wants to work with you or your team. They want to learn more about the fund space, how they started, how to pitch investors, things of that nature. A lot of the things that we learned in your course, how does somebody actually reach out to you?
Yeah. And by the way, thanks for having me on. It's been fun to hang out. You guys are a cute couple and just fun to hang out with. I don't know if you're a couple. I'm assuming you're a couple, but
yeah, we are. I'm sorry. We usually, what happened is that we usually have a connection call before the podcast where we kind of tell a little bit of our story and then hear your story. But we didn't have one with you because we knew your story and we listened to you so much. So we probably still should have had one, but we can have another one later and we could kind of go into detail about our background. So that's why you didn't really know anything about us coming onto the podcast. But yeah, how would somebody get in contact?
Yeah. So we've our stuff online is called Investment Fund Secrets. So investmentfundsecrets.com. We have a 1-hour training on there. Try to go in depth more. And we have kind of the stuff we talked about today, but a little bit more in depth on how to start your fund. We have programs and stuff that you guys have joined and other things, but we try to just put out good content on YouTube and our podcast. So Investment Fund Secrets, if you look that up, you'll find us anywhere. If you want to get in touch with me, Instagram is usually the best spot. So Bridger_Pennington is my Instagram, and shoot me a DM on there. We try to respond to most everybody on there. So reach out to me if you have questions or comments or other things, and we'll try to point you in the right direction. So it's a good way to get in contact.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Bridger, for coming on to the podcast. This was truly a wealth of knowledge and it was super fun. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Abundant Culture Podcast with Jazz and Joe. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, then leave an honest rating and review. And remember, we're ready to buy your business. So if you're ready to sell or passively invest in other small businesses, go to abundantculture.co for more information. We publish episodes every Friday, so we'll see you next week.